We have just arrived here in Karjalohja to visit KÄÄPÄ Biotech company. Let's go take a look. So, hi Eric, and thank you for having us here today. And I have been used KÄÄPÄ products myself, and I have impressed about them, and that is why I wanted to look behind your company and how it all about started. So, how did you get an idea from KÄÄPÄ? How you started about this company?
Yeah, thanks. Glad the products are working for you and that they're interesting. I guess that's the whole point of us doing this. But I think, as an entrepreneur, kind of our jobs are to solve problems, right? And a lot of that, of course, has to do with how identifying problems, seeing a lot of problems, and being able to see a strategy of how to solve that problem as well. And I think for me, the path here was kind of both of those things. It was like, I could see the problem with the functional mushroom industry, with a lot of low quality material from China. There's a lot of issues there. And then I could also see a strategy of like what we could do about that, what a different alternative could be. And so that was a big inspiration for me from a professional standpoint, right? And I think from a personal standpoint, I just so personally, I live in Karjalohja, I really enjoy the countryside. My kids are in a Steiner school. I'm very active in the community in this way. And for me, I really enjoy this connection and closer with nature, right? So for me, if we're going to think about how to solve a problem, there's 100 ways to do that, right? We have cognition issues, or we have sleeping issues, or we have immunity problems, or we have just generally, lack of energy. There's 100 ways to solve those things. And for me, looking at how to do that from a lens of connecting with nature, or looking to nature for those answers, it really, you land on somewhere between kind of nutraceuticals, natural medicine, lifestyle changes, something around there. And so that was for me a big personal, keeps me motivated to come into the office every day, let's say. But definitely when looking at how to apply, let's say, biotech, which is, I would say, is sort of the formal way of looking to nature for answers, kind of, looking at the existing space in the functional mushroom industry and seeing just all this really low quality and questionable material coming in from China, where there was a study published 2 years ago that only 6 out of the 18 products tested on the top Italian Amazon were the correct DNA. So customers are buying shiitake and it's just something, or they're buying reishi and it's some yeast powder. And for me, it's unacceptable. We're not in an industry, we're not selling used cars. We're not selling a pair of jeans. We're not, people are taking our products to deal with real life issues, actual health issues. And to me, that means that the standards and requirements we have to have need to be higher. So instead of looking at that study, seeing the issues and going, okay, well, at least 6 were okay. To me, no, this should be 18 out of 18 at the bare minimum are the correct DNA. Also, they should have heavy metal requirements within EU limits. Also, they should have bioactive levels that are effective at the dose. Also all that too. So for us, we just said, we need to develop an alternative. We want to do it here in Finland. We want to utilize the cleanest air and cleanest water ever measured in the world. We want to utilize the amazing people that live here and the great resource of natural clean wood as a food for the mushrooms, and build a company this way and take a very alternative approach. High quality, slowing down a little bit, utilizing scientific methodology, developing human clinicals, whatever that would be, that we can really develop a strong foundation to offer products in the market. So I think generally my inspiration was just, there's a problem. I'm personally inspired to solve it. I think we know how to do that. And at the end, we can give something to people that's a higher value product, basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
So KÄÄPÄ is quite a versatile company. Like there is KÄÄPÄ Forest and KÄÄPÄ Mushrooms and Nordic Mushrooms, different stage, different structure. Can you tell about this structure and what they are doing?
Yeah. So I think when you start a company, you have original ideas of what you're going to do, and then life happens and reality happens, and you start to learn things. And I think as you learn things and as you hear better from your customers what improvements you can make, and you hear what people are asking for, you are at a constant state of evolution and analyzing what that opportunity could be. Does this add synergistic value to the mission I'm doing? Or is this a distraction, right? Or is this helping me focus more? And I think that's a conversation that everybody's going to have, and it's going to evolve your original idea into something else. And so I think where we see KÄÄPÄ right now is through that natural process of that kind of evolution. So very early on, for instance, when we decided, okay, we're a functional mushroom ingredient company, we're going to be producing this, let's source chaga. Okay, how do we source chaga? Well, Finland is the only country where we can get, where's the cheapest? That's the first usually thing. Okay, Russia, great. Okay, we can buy from Russia. Wait, in Russia, it's not organic certified. Okay, that's a value we need to have. And it's not, let's say, thought about over harvesting. That kind of issue is not thought about. Okay, well, where can we ensure that what we are buying is not degrading the forest ecosystem, and it's not over harvested, and it's organic, and people who are doing the harvesting are treated well? Well, we analyzed all the markets we could do that, and Finland's the only one. So the Finnish government is effectively monitoring how much chaga can be taken out of that forest to maintain a healthy ecosystem. So it's not over harvested. Okay, well, that made it very clear. Okay, we buy from Finland. We buy organic certified. And now our company is buying 70, 80% of all the approved chaga coming out of Finland. So this is not sustainable. How do we grow? The market is growing 30% per year, and our source of raw material is pretty fixed, right, for chaga. So we saw some research early on in the company. Luke, the National Research Institute of Finland, was doing phenomenal work at commercializing and finding ways to grow chaga in the forest, right? So it actually inoculating living birch trees. So we said, wow, what an amazing solution, right? It's biotech. You're working with nature, you're learning patterns from nature, and you're not trying to grow it in a laboratory disconnected from what's actually happening in the wild, but rather you're working with those systems to make it a little bit more sustainable and regenerative and renewable. So we built KÄÄPÄ Forest. So we built a division that was focused on a new business model where we can work with existing forest partners. Now we work with like OP Bank, City of Lohja, City of Helsinki, different insurance companies here in Finland, a lot of investment funds that manage forests. And we go, hey, you have forests and we have a really great way for you to utilize that. You can make a better return. You can sequester carbon in the process. And at the end, your forest is making beautiful medicine. And then we get that chaga back. So it's just a consistent asking questions of like, how do I grow my business that's not a distraction? How do I keep the focus? But how do I, build on that opportunity? And so we got to the point now where we have the KÄÄPÄ Forest division helping supply chaga to the other divisions in the company. And we have our own branded product line, which I think you've taken. And then we have our own ingredient line. So when we were being approached by all these companies like, hey, we love KÄÄPÄ Mushrooms products. We love what you're doing. Could you white label for us? Could you give us ingredients? And we said, hey, we should, why not? It really helps us leverage the mission of increasing our scale so we can get our price down, right? So we can be more effective. And as well as giving extra money that we can do human clinical trials and all the compound evidence that we want to do. Whereas if we only stuck to our own brand, we'd have a tougher time, I think, being able to justify all that CapEx expense. So then we layered on the ingredient side, and now the ingredient side is growing 5 times more than any other division of the company. So I think it's a complex thing that we've created for sure. But I can promise you every little step along the way, there was a really good reason why we did that. But that's not to say we also didn't get rid of stuff. We also had divisions like KÄÄPÄ Gourmet, right? Where we were producing fresh mushrooms for Esoko and these kind of, and it just didn't make sense. It's not our key value. You know, everyone can grow culinary mushrooms. So for us, we just said, hey, let's get rid of Kappa Gourmet. So I think it's an iterative process, you know?
Yeah, sounds very, very nice. Do you have examples of the products you are selling to other companies, or what they are using them?
Yeah, actually, I think we just take out of the office, but for instance, there's a Rockstar Energy is a energy drink brand, division of PepsiCo, where we are one of the suppliers supplying lion's mane for that beverage. So, you know, that's one example. We consistently are also making like chocolate products with people. We do a lot of capsules with people with different brands. We're also making different functional beverages like kombucha, or as I mentioned, energy drinks or non-alcoholic functional beverages are getting quite popular. There's a couple of great Finnish brands that we work with there too. I think at one point we went into Rohanjuri and we looked at all the functional mushroom, or all the brands utilizing functional mushrooms, and we were like, there was like 10 and we were supplying 9, you know, everywhere from cosmetics to food to functional beverage to nutraceutical. So we really pride ourselves in being able to, let's say, adapt our ingredients for many different use cases. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So what you said lion's mane is in the energy drinks, and what you think, what is the thing why lion's mane is so popular right now?
Yeah, I think lion's mane plays a role in energy drinks because it's really supporting our cognition, right? So we know that when we hit about 30 years old, NGF or nerve growth factor or BDNF brain-derived nootropic factor, they start to decline. So we can match that and correlate that perfectly with a decline of nerve cells in our brain as well. So we just start to, you know, our memory goes, our cognition goes, our mood can be a little bit less. We can increase depression symptoms. So what we look at is, well, okay, let's supplement NGF or BDNF, right? We also have, for instance, vitamin D issues here in Finland. We supplement, we take vitamin D. As you grow older, maybe some vitamin C issues, so you take vitamin, but you cannot supplement BDNF or NGF. They're too big to go across the blood-brain barrier where they need to be. But thankfully, lion's mane has very small compounds, these hericines and hericenones, which can cross the blood-brain barrier and effectively stimulate your brain's own production of NGF and BDNF to like teenager levels. That's a good level. Teenagers is a great level of NGF and BDNF. And then you can go back to basically seeing nerve cells increasing again. So we can stop the decline of nerve cells in our brain. We can stabilize that, and we can actually see increase of nerve cells. So I think lion's mane provides a really positive story about what is a sort of a way to address cognitive decline before you have it, like a preventative medicine. So a lot of our industry, nutraceuticals, natural medicine, we're a lot focused on don't get sick, don't have problems, stop before you get those things, right? So instead of showing up to the hospital in 40 years with Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, dementia, all this stuff, before you stop forgetting all your kids' names and where your keys are and all this kind of stuff, you know, you just go, whoa, hey, I need to really take care of my brain. I need to make sure I get my steps in each day. I need to make sure I get my 8 hours of sleep, drink enough water, and I stop the decline of nerve cells in my brain. That's the kind of how a lot of people are thinking about it now. So I think that's why lion's mane is the most popular product we work with, because the clinical evidence, even that we've done ourselves and many other organizations, is very aligned with, you know, where we see results. And I think people who take it can feel that. So for instance, with the Rockstar Energy case, they polled their customers. They said, how do we make this better for you guys? And it was like 70% said put in lion's mane. So it's not only really effective, but you see a big amount of education being done on platforms like TikTok and Instagram. So a lot of, you know, new social media influencers and health influencers are really helping educate a whole new generation, a whole new group of people to think about, hey, before you have problems like your grandparents, think about, there's ways to stop that. There's ways to not have that happen. And so I think lion's mane is a big part of that story. Yeah.
Okay. So you have a number of different mushroom species in your products. And what is the way you choose the mushrooms you are growing or cultivating?
Yeah, so a lot of where we choose is kind of a matrix of what is clinical scientific evidence backing up those things. From that clinical scientific evidence, where do we understand the mechanism of action? Do we know the compounds inside that mushroom that actually are responsible for those benefits? And then is it regulatory approved or not? And that's a big one, because the EFSA, European Food Safety Authority, or FDA in the US, these authorities are going to have a very short list of mushrooms that are approved from a regulatory standpoint. So where we know there's about 1,000 to 10,000 more species of fungi than plants, and the potential for compounds and interesting species to help with health in that pool is massive. And we only working with like 10, 11 species maximum right now. So when we think about, what does the future look like? What are the next few decades? A big part of that is, how do we as a company push forward that regulatory approval process so we can start to get more species used? Definitely.
Okay. And so what is the KÄÄPÄ's part of the global stage of the mushroom production or the mushroom products? How big KÄÄPÄ is like globally?
So we have partners in basically across Europe, in the UK. We also have many partners in the US and also South Korea. So those are the main markets that we're focused on: South Korea, US, Europe, and UK. And so we supply large global companies based in Europe and the US, as well as very small startups here in Finland, and everything in between. So we are, where our mission is entirely about just being able to provide it to any brand that really wants to use it,
Okay.
Yeah.
So you announced your own not release, like a process, your own process, and that is approved with EU.
Yes.
Can you explain?
Yeah. So this has been like a 3-4 year process where when if we go really back to why we started the company, one of the things was the issues with, like we said, the heavy metals, the CFU levels, the DNA, really a mess. But I think a big part about, so how those mushrooms are grown is super important. It's got to have clean water, clean air, right? So that was a big part of our initial thought, was let's just really grow these mushrooms in a really pure way, and really test everything and make sure how we grow them is going to ensure really clean results, right? And give traceability to everybody, honest and open traceability. Then we started thinking about, okay, well, it's not just enough to grow the mushrooms, because with mushrooms, you have this chitin cell wall. And unlike plants, which have this cellulose cell wall, we're not easy to digest them, right? So if you eat some plants and or if you look at any other mammal, they're eating plants all the time. And those plants can go in our digestive system. They can go through our stomach, small, large intestine, and we can really open up that cellulose cell walls. We can get the nutrition inside, and we can digest those more or less pretty okay with our gut microbiome. But for mushrooms, we are not super well designed to process mushrooms, actually. So many people think they're allergic to mushrooms because there's so much gut discomfort when eating mushrooms. But really, that's just about, we can't really open up those cell walls very easily. So it's very difficult for us to sort of digest and fully utilize mushrooms. So that requires an extraction process. And the extraction process, the goal of it is to open the cell wall without breaking and disturbing all the chemical compounds inside that have medicinal value. So it's a very tricky job. You have to do something vigorous enough to open up that cell wall, but then stop and not destroy those really precious long chain medicinal compounds inside. And when you look at the technology that was used when we started the company, it was basically 2 options. There's water extraction. That's like a 4,000-year-old technique, right? It's making tea. So you put something in hot water And if you do this with reishi mushroom or chaga, which pakuriteita is a thing here in Finland, right? You will noticeably see the water turn dark. You will noticeably take out that chaga piece, the pakuri piece, and you can taste it. It's going to have a taste. If with reishi, it'll taste bitter. With chaga, it tastes very earthy. And what you're noticing is an extraction process. Some of those cells are opening up and they're releasing into the liquid. You can remove that material and you can drink. Now, if you were to test, which we've done in a laboratory in Portugal, how many compounds are left in that piece of chaga after the extraction and how much have been transferred in the water, it's like 5% is transferred, right? And then if you test bioavailability, how much of those actually can go into your blood after consuming, it's also around 5%. So a water extraction is a very weak process. So it's not so great at opening up cell walls, and it's not so great at making a form that's bioavailable for our bodies to actually take into the blood. If you move to alcohol and water extraction, this you do get like 10 times increase. So you're like 50% right there, because the alcohol is actually a chemical solvent that dissolves those cell walls, right? But it's also very destructive. So it's also destroying a lot of the medicinal compounds at the same time. So you're getting about 50% bioavailability, but quite low bioactive compounds, right? And this is an unapproved extraction source for fungi in Europe. So you can't use that anyway. So we said, okay, this isn't a great situation, that legally all we can use is water extraction. And this is a very low technology, low bioavailability, low effective methodology for extraction. So we built a white paper, we did a lot of research, we bought some lab scale and pilot scale equipment, and we've been testing this since we started probably 5 years ago. And we've slowly built this into a process where we knew that it was safe, we knew it was very effective, we knew that we're not significantly altering the composition of the ingredients in any real way, and we felt like, okay, this is good. We asked EFSA, European Food Safety Authority, to make a decision on that for us. So we asked them, hey, we came up with this new system. We'd love you to double check. We think it's safe. We think we've done all the work. We have all these dossiers. We've done all the research. Can you just double check that? And basically their answer was, of course. And so they double checked it, and they recently have now approved it officially. So now any brand that would like to use the highest technology extraction systems possible for mushrooms, we now have a really good offering for. So that's why we really developed this Nord release process and really push it's a lot of money and time to get the regulatory approval, but we really wanted to make sure that we felt 100% safe and secure behind it.
So what is the bioactivity level after your process?
Yeah, so we're at like 92%.
Okay.
So it's a very effective way. So if we think about, low quality, low cost material coming from China, our value is going to be high bioavailability, high levels of compounds, low effective doses, right? And something that's really, really, really shining. So we need to develop high technology, high quality, something really fantastic, something very unique. So, and I think Nord release is absolutely the perfect, let's say, solution to this issue. Yeah.
Okay. And then you had another announced by the investment from the Big Bridge. Mm-hmm. And what you are going to do with that new money, and what is your plans to future?
Yeah, so Peak Bridge. So we've sort of decided this year, we have now reached a production scale in our company, which is a fantastic milestone. And we're like somewhere between 2 and 3 times more demand for our products than we have production capacity for. So we have quite long lead times right now. And so we said, well, it's only going to be more demand. Like the industry is growing so much. So we decided to open up like an equity round and start working with potential investors to see interest to help us scale further. So now we have this facility in Karelohe where we do extraction and processing. We have a mushroom growing facility in Paimio, and we have a mushroom growing facility now also in Salo. So now we have these three spaces, but we need to basically double all that, right? So this is going to be another significant project for the company. And we started to float that idea around. I made some calls. We started presenting and being open about this. And PeakBridge was a organization that we've been in contact with for years. And so PeakBridge VC is, I think, probably the global leading venture capital firm when it comes to food ingredients. And they have significant experience with functional ingredients as well. And it just seemed like a perfect alignment. I mean, they've been looking for functional mushroom investment opportunity for years, but haven't been able to pull the trigger because there hasn't been something like KÄÄPÄ before. So we sort of checked all those boxes, like backed by science, great defensible position, wonderful global partners, really focused to grow, great team, just all those boxes we could check. And we were able to execute with them a safe investment. So it's basically an investment prior to our equity round closing. So it'll basically be part of that equity round when we close that too. And I think mainly we're just using the money to make more mushrooms, basically, is the focus. So a lot of what we're doing right now is just growing what we know works. That's a big part of our business, is just, growing what we know works and putting a lot of focus to that. So.
Yeah. Do you grow cordyceps?
Yes.
Yeah. Is that true that cordyceps has something to make the ant brain something? Can you tell about this?
Yeah. So do you know the HBO series The Last of Us? So this is about basically cordyceps infecting humans and turning us into zombies effectively. So of course it's sci-fi and it's a really funny story. But I think it's based on some element of truth, right? And that element of truth is with Cordyceps militaris, naturally it's eating insect brains, right? So it's living 99% of its life, it's very boring. It's just a vegetative mycelial state living in the soil. And then it's like, man, it's time to reproduce, right? I want to reproduce. And then it crawls out of the soil and it sort of has some little mycelial feathers and it maybe it finds an insect. And then it's able to travel inside that insect and up into the brain. At that point, it takes over the brain and turns that ant or grasshopper or whatever insect effectively into like I think of like the Power Rangers. Do you remember the Power Rangers? Like when we were kids, the TV show where but in Power Rangers, all these people would get together and they would all join their forces and they would control this big robot. And they would all be sitting in the brain and controlling this big robot and fighting other big monsters or whatever. But basically that's what cordyceps does, is it's like the Power Ranger. It sneaks itself into the ant or the grasshopper, controls the brain, and controls the grasshopper to do things it wants to do, which is mainly to climb up like 2-3 meters and then hold on to that tree or that plant really hard. And then it kills it. And then it uses the remaining energy sucking out from that grasshopper to produce a fruiting body. And actually, these are some of the first cordyceps fruiting bodies that we ever produced as a company. They've turned white now. They're so old. But basically, it looks like this kind of long like finger. And this comes out of the back of that insect. And at the top, it opens up and sporulates. And those spores, they actually go into the air and repopulate the soil again. And so that's the reproductive mechanism for cordyceps. So it's pretty wild, pretty intense.
Yeah.
So here, of course, we don't grow those on ants or grasshoppers. We've developed a vegan approved, no animals harmed in the making of our cordyceps process. But that has the same, let's say, nutritional compounds. So we can still have a really effective medicinal cordyceps product that's a fruiting body mushroom, but without all that, death of insects. And but it's a pretty wild part. Yeah.
Wild story. And mushrooms are very interesting. And do you have something to say? I think we are ready. And thank you for these very interesting stories. And I'm wishing luck for KÄÄPÄ. And I hope we are getting more interesting announcing and we are getting big.
Kiitos. Happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you.